Imagine standing at an air show scanning the sky. Then, well, it appears. A shape unlike anything else you've seen. An odd, almost alien geometric form, truly a flying wing, just gliding silently overhead. I mean, it's a huge aircraft, right? But that thunderous roar you'd expect from 4 jet engines putting out over 17,000 pounds of thrust each, it's just not there. You can actually hear the crowd chatting around you, like talking right over this faint, almost impossible to place whisper from the engines. It's not just quiet, it's eerie. Unsettling almost, like a massive ghost just floating by. Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us again as we jump into another really revolutionary piece of engineering. Today, we're peeling back the layers on that very aircraft, the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. Our mission, really, for this deep dive is to understand its groundbreaking design, what actually makes it invisible. And not just to the eye, but, to all sorts of advanced sensors. We've got a fantastic stack of sources for this: military analyses, deep engineering dives, the works. It's going to be fascinating.
Now, before we really get into the nitty-gritty, if you find value in what we do here, please take just a second to like this deep dive. Share it with someone who maybe loves figuring out complex stuff like this. Drop a comment below, too. Tell us what you think. And, of course, hit that bell icon to subscribe. Your support, honestly, it helps us bring more of these explorations to you. Okay, so let's start with that first impression, that uncanny quietness. You mentioned the eerie quiet during a flyby, even with those 4 powerful General Electric engines. How does a machine that big, making so much thrust, manage to be so quiet?
Well, it's really quite revolutionary, the approach they took. It's not just about muffling the sound in the usual way. It's about rethinking where the engines even go. You see, those powerful engines aren't slung under the wings like on, say, a typical airliner or bomber. No, they're buried deep inside the top part of that massive flying wing structure.
Oh, okay. So the wing itself acts like a giant muffler.
Exactly. It contains and dampens a huge amount of the noise right there. Plus, the B-2's design, that flying wing, it's incredibly aerodynamically efficient. That means it actually needs less power, lower throttle settings to maintain its speed and altitude compared to a less efficient design. Less power means less noise. It's a clever combo of hiding the source and just needing less power overall. And beyond the sound, you've got the visual aspect, that incredibly distinctive shape, that flying wing look almost alien, flat, narrow. It's not just for show.
Right, it looks like nothing else.
And that shape, combined with this special non-reflective dark gray paint, it's all meticulously designed for camouflage. The idea is, from about 23 miles away or more, it should just blend into the sky, become really hard to spot. And speaking of visual giveaways, think about contrails. Those white trails jets leave. A dead giveaway.
Yeah, you can spot those from miles away.
Exactly. So the B-2 has a special contrail sensor. It basically tells the pilot, hey, the conditions up here are right for making a trail, so they can change altitude and avoid leaving that visible signature. Every little bit helps maintain that invisibility.
It's amazing the level of detail, sound, visual profile. But then there's heat, right? Hot exhaust is like a beacon for infrared sensors, for heat-seeking missiles. Yeah. How does the B-2 handle that?
That's another area where the B-2 really pushed the envelope on stealth. Okay, so instead of just blasting hot exhaust straight out the back, which would light it up like a Christmas tree on an IR sensor, the B-2 routes those gases through special nozzles on the top of the aircraft. They're these offset V-shaped things. But that's not all. Before the exhaust even gets out, cold air, they call it barrier air, is actively mixed into the hot gas stream. This cools it down significantly.
Ah, clever, diluting the heat signature.
Precisely. And then these cooler gases are expelled over a flattened surface made of titanium and carbon fiber. This helps diffuse heat even more, spreading it out, making it harder to detect. And one absolutely critical thing: no afterburners. They deliberately didn't include them.
Right, because afterburners give you that extra thrust, but they also create a massive plume of heat, don't they?
A huge infrared plume, yeah. It would completely undo all that careful cooling and diffusion work. It really highlights a key trade-off in stealth design, doesn't it? You prioritize one kind of invisibility. Sometimes you have to give up a performance feature like afterburners.
That makes perfect sense. These trade-offs seem central. And speaking of incredible engineering, okay, hiding the sound, the sight, the heat, that's amazing. But the real magic, for me, is how it seems to vanish from radar. How does something that big look, what was it, smaller than a sparrow on a radar screen?
Yeah, that's where you really get into the deep science of it. The key concept is something called radar cross-section, or RCS. It's crucial to understand RCS isn't about the plane's actual physical size. It's about how much radar energy it reflects back to the radar receiver.
Okay, so it's about reflectivity, not just size.
Exactly. Think of shining a flashlight on a mirror. Head on, you get a bright reflection right back. That's high RCS. But if you tilt that mirror or curve it, the light bounces off somewhere else, right? Very little comes back to your eyes. That's low RCS. The B-2's RCS is reported to be incredibly small, maybe 0.1 down to 0.05 square meters. Tiny.
Wow. How is that even possible for something so large?
Well, a lot of it goes back to the work of a Russian mathematician, Petro Ufintsev. He theorized back in the 60s that RCS depended mainly on the shape of an object, particularly its edges and curves, not its overall mass. That insight was revolutionary for stealth design, and that leads directly to purpose shaping, which is really the defining feature of the B-2's design. The whole philosophy is to shake the aircraft so that almost all the radar waves hitting it are deflected away from the source radar. It creates this sort of cone of silence where the radar receiver is. It's a huge leap from earlier stealth like the F-117 Nighthawk.
Right, the F-117 was all flat panels and sharp angles, wasn't it?
It was. That was partly due to the computer modeling limits back then. Those facets did deflect maybe 70% of radar waves away, which was good for its time. But the B-2, with its smooth curves and that flying wing shape, much more advanced. It gets rid of almost all 90-degree corners. Those are like perfect radar reflectors, bouncing signals straight back. Instead, the B-2 uses what's called planform alignment.
Planform alignment. What's that?
Basically, many of the surfaces, especially the leading edge, which sweeps forward, and that distinctive sawtooth trailing edge, they're all angled at very specific, consistent angles relative to each other. So no matter which way the radar wave hits from the front or sides, it tends to get bounced off in a predictable direction away from the radar source. It's incredibly sophisticated geometry.
So shaping is about diverting the waves. But does it also absorb them? Like soak them up?
Oh, absolutely. That's the other critical piece of the puzzle. Radar-absorbing materials, or RAM, this isn't just paint, it's advanced stuff. Often composite materials, think carbon fiber graphite mixed with epoxy resins, sometimes even incorporating metallic elements like silver. These materials don't just deflect radar waves, they actually absorb the electromagnetic energy and convert it into tiny amounts of heat. Essentially, they eat the radar signal.
So the plane itself is made of this stuff?
A huge amount of it. Something like 80% of the B-2 structure is composite materials with RAM properties. And then the really reflective bits, like the sharp edges of the wings and the engine intake lips, they get sprayed with extra layers of specialized RAM coatings. It's a belt and suspenders approach. Shake it to deflect, coat it to absorb. Now, even with all that, there are still tricky parts. Engine turbine blades, for instance, are fantastic radar reflectors. You can't just coat them easily.
Right, they're spinning metal parts deep inside.
Exactly. So the B-2 uses another clever trick, trapping. The air intakes aren't straight ducts leading to the engines. They're curved S-shaped paths. Serpentine ducts, they call them.
Ah, so the radar waves can't get a straight shot at the engine blades.
Precisely. Any radar waves that go into the intake have to bounce off the curved walls multiple times before they could ever reach the engine face. And guess what those duct walls are lined with?
Well, let me guess. More RAM.
You got it. So with each bounce, the radar wave loses energy, gets absorbed by the RAM lining the duct. By the time any residual energy reaches the engine blades and bounces back out through that S-bend again, there's practically nothing left to detect. It effectively hides those reflective engine parts. And one last quick point, controlling its own signals. The B-2 is designed to minimize the electromagnetic energy leaking from its own onboard electronics. And when it does have to use radar, like its APQ-181 navigation and a targeting radar, it uses signals that are very low power, highly focused, and difficult for enemy systems to intercept. It's called low probability of intercept, or LPI, radar. It's this whole package deal, addressing every possible way it could be detected.
It's just astounding, the layers upon layers of technology. But as you expect, all this cutting-edge stuff, this invisibility, it comes at a cost, a huge cost, which brings us to the reality of operating the B-2. It's famous, or maybe infamous, for being the world's most expensive aircraft. What are we talking about, cost-wise?
Yeah, the numbers are pretty eye-watering. Sources put the total cost per plane, including all the R&D, testing, everything, at around, get this, $3 billion per unit, adjusted to 2020 dollars. $3 billion for one plane. And, the original plan was way more ambitious. They wanted to build 132 of them, but the costs just kept ballooning. There were huge debates in Congress.
Right, the Cold War ended too, which changed the perceived need.
Exactly. So in the end, they only built 21. And when you spread all those development costs over just 21 aircraft instead of 132, the price per plane just skyrockets. And it's not just buying them. Keeping them flying is incredibly expensive, too. The maintenance is intense, isn't it? Oh, extremely. That's stealth coding. The RAM is apparently very sensitive. It requires highly skilled technicians and specialized hangars that control temperature and humidity just to keep it effective. And reports say that after every flight, crews spend hours inspecting the entire aircraft, looking for tiny damages or wear that could compromise its stealth. They have to reapply materials, touch things up constantly. It's not like maintaining a regular airplane. It's more like caring for a delicate, high-tech instrument. And remember those trade-offs we talked about? Well, achieving that stealth shape often means sacrificing some aerodynamic performance. That sleek flying wing, it's actually inherently unstable in flight on all three axes.
Unstable. How does it even fly then?
Computers. Lots of computers. It lacks the usual tail surfaces, the vertical and horizontal stabilizers that provide natural stability on most planes. So it relies entirely on a quadruple redundant fly-by-wire system. Computers are constantly making tiny adjustments to the control surfaces on the wings, adjusting engine thrust just to keep it flying straight and level, or to make basic turns. A human pilot couldn't manage it directly.
So it needs constant computer help just to fly. And does that affect its speed?
It does. Because of that instability and the overall design focus on stealth, not speed, it can't go supersonic. Its top speed is around 630 miles per hour, which is fast, but more like a subsonic airliner than a cutting-edge military jet.
Yeah.
And even with all this incredible stealth technology, we need to be clear. The B-2 isn't literally invisible. That raises questions about its vulnerabilities in actual combat.
Right. So it can still be detected sometimes.
Potentially. For example, some lower frequency, longer wavelength radar systems, the kind used for early warning, might be able to detect that something is out there. Even if they can't get a precise lock or track it well enough to guide a missile, they might get a blip, a hint of its presence. And probably its biggest threat in a real shooting war would be enemy fighter aircraft. If a modern fighter somehow gets close, say within a few dozen miles, then the B-2 becomes much more vulnerable.
Because at that range, visual spotting, infrared sensors, even the fighter's own radar might pick it up.
Exactly. And the B-2 has no air-to-air missiles for self-defense, and it can't outrun or outmaneuver a dedicated fighter jet. If it gets caught in a close-in fight, its chances aren't great. There's also an interesting quirk of stealth shaping. While it deflects radar away from the source, those deflected waves have to go somewhere. So from certain other angles off to the side or above or below, the radar reflection might actually be stronger than from a non-stealthy plane.
Huh. So it's super stealthy head-on, but maybe more visible from other directions.
Potentially, yeah. And ironically, the RAM, by absorbing radar energy and turning it into heat, can slightly increase the aircraft's surface temperature in some conditions, which could, theoretically, make it a tiny bit more visible to very sensitive infrared detectors. It's all about complex trade-offs in the specific situation.
Those trade-offs really are the story, aren't they? A master of stealth penetration, but maybe not a dogfighter or a speed demon. Let's shift focus now to its legacy, its actual operational history and what it does. It was born out of the Cold War, designed to sneak past heavy Soviet air defenses for strategic bombing runs. Its first flight was way back in July 1989. Didn't see combat until Kosovo in '99, right?
That's right. Kosovo was its combat debut. Then it flew missions over Afghanistan after 9/11, Iraq, and also Libya more recently.
And what it's really shown is this incredible long-range strike capability, flying nonstop missions from White Man Air Force Base in Missouri, sometimes lasting almost 2 days, hitting targets halfway around the world and coming back. I read about this unique refueling setup they use sometimes, like in Norway. A Formula One pit stop, they called it.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. They can land, refuel, maybe even get new targeting data, all without shutting down the engines and then take off again very quickly. It gives them incredible global reach and persistence.
And the payload it carries is immense. Theoretically, up to 35 tons. It can carry nuclear bombs, obviously, up to 16 of them, but also a huge load of conventional weapons.
Right, things like 8,500-pound bombs or cluster bombs, even sea mines. Its main conventional weapon these days is the JDAM, the GPS-guided bomb. Very precise.
And it can carry standoff weapons too, right? To hit targets from further away.
Yes, weapons like the JSOW glide bomb, which can travel about 80 miles, and the JASSM cruise missile, which is stealthy itself and can reach targets over 500 miles away. That lets the B-2 attack heavily defended areas without having to fly directly over the most dangerous zones.
And then there's that monster bomb, the GBU-57. Massive ordnance penetrator.
Ah, yes, the MOP. That's a beast, a 30,000-pound bunker buster. The B-2 is the only aircraft currently configured to carry it, up to 2 of them, actually.
And it's designed to destroy targets buried super deep underground, like 60 meters or 200 feet.
That's the idea. targeting deeply buried command centers, weapons facilities, what they call decapitation strikes. It's a unique capability for hitting those kinds of hardened targets. So thinking about its place in history, the B-2 really was this huge leap forward from the F-117. As we said, the F-117's angular shape was kind of dictated by the computer tech of the time. The B-2, with its curves enabled by much more powerful computers, introduced these key techniques managing surface waves, the serpentine engine ducts, that really set the stage for the next generation.
So techniques developed for the B-2 then showed up in later stealth planes.
Absolutely. You see the influence in the F-22 Raptor and especially the F-35 Lightning II. They took those concepts and refined them further. For instance, modern stealth, like on the F-35, has really advanced in RAM durability. The F-35 uses this fiber mat RAM that's basically baked into the aircraft's skin. It's much tougher and easier to maintain than the B-2's coatings were, at least initially. Plus, planes like the F-35 have much better electronic warfare systems and are true multi-role aircraft, air-to-air, ground attack, intelligence gathering, all in one stealthy package. Far more versatile than the original F-117, which naturally makes you wonder, what's next? Where does stealth technology go from here?
Are there new ideas on the horizon?
Well, the sources mention a couple of possibilities, though they seem pretty far out right now. One is plasma stealth. The idea is to create a layer of ionized gas, plasma, around the aircraft that could absorb or refract radar waves.
Plasma, like surrounding the plane in lightning.
Sort of, yeah. Huge technical challenges there, power, stability, control. The other concept is active intelligence signal cancellation. That would involve detecting incoming radar signals and then actively transmitting your own signal exactly out of phase to cancel it out, making the echo disappear. Again, incredibly complex, requires immense processing power and speed. Both are more theoretical than practical right now, it seems.
So it sounds like the cat and mouse game continues. Which brings us to a final thought, something for you to chew on. The B-2 was designed to defeat the absolute best air defenses of the Cold War era. But technology never stands still. Detection methods keep evolving new types of radar, better sensors, network systems. So how long can the B-2's specific mix of stealth features really keep it the ghost in the sky? And maybe more broadly, what does its existence and this constant race between stealth and detection tell us about the future of warfare? Especially in a world that seems to be getting more and more transparent, more detectable. It's definitely something to think about. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us as we explore the fascinating complexities of the B-2 Spirit. It's always great digging into these incredible machines and the science behind them with you. And one last time, if you enjoyed unraveling the B-2 with us, please do like this deep dive, share it around, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Every bit of engagement really helps us out and allows us to keep making more content like this. Oh, and definitely hit that bell to subscribe so you don't miss our next exploration. We truly appreciate your support. Thanks again for listening.